Well, it appears that Nikki Haley is finally deciding to take the gloves off and start politically hitting Trump hard, and that's what I have for you. There has been a notable shift in Nikki Haley's tone about Trump. It looks like as she approaches the South Carolina primary, she's looking to do anything she can to change what seems to be the inevitable outcome, and I'm all for it. I've been publicly begging all the GOP candidates since the beginning to actually go after Trump in a way that matches who he is. Now, to be clear, she refuses to actually criticize him on some of the most consequential elements of him, such as how he threatens democracy. She isn't, for example, matching the rhetoric of Chris Christie, which was the most sane in the primary before he dropped out, but at least she's escalating it. I also want to note before playing the first clip that just because she would be much less bad than Trump, that doesn't mean she's some fantastic candidate. I'd still fight passionately in favor of a Biden candidacy over a Nikki Haley candidacy if she were to be the Republican nominee. But given who Trump is, she'd obviously be preferable. And I also like to clarify before the first clip that she has essentially no shot at winning against Trump. But I want to see her do as much damage as possible before she goes down. And that's what we're seeing potentially play out here. Here's clip number one.
And what happened after that was a sight to see. Because on election night, we were super excited. We had moved 25 points in the 3 weeks leading up to the election. And Donald Trump was totally unhinged. Unhinged. He was a bit sensitive, and I think his feelings were hurt, but he threw a temper tantrum out on stage, seriously, threw a total temper tantrum, and was talking about revenge. So after he talked about revenge and had a little something to say about me, that's fine. We raised $1 million online right after he did that. Then the next day, Unhinged again says, for anybody that supports Nikki Haley, you will be barred from MAGA. So we had a little fun with that. We started selling t-shirts that said barred permanently. We sold 10,000 t-shirts. We raised another $1.6 million.
Finally, my goodness. And listen, again, Chris Christie went after Trump 10 times more than Nikki Haley ever will, and on the issues that matter the most, and he never polled above low single digits. So clearly there isn't that big of an appetite in the GOP for Trump trash talk, but I love to see it anyways. Come on. And as we've been covering, there does seem to be a contingent of Nikki Haley supporters that really don't see themselves voting for Trump in the general election. So if Haley can turn up the heat against Trump and Trump can get even more angry and go nuts calling her everything under the sun, there's a good chance that anti-Trump Republicans who are currently supporting Nikki Haley could sort of dig their heels in because of that Trump behavior and refuse to vote for him in the general election. Better yet, vote for Joe Biden. And that's what I think a more messy fight between Haley and Trump over the next few weeks or maybe even months, if she stays in, has the potential to do. Here's another example, this time on Meet the Press, where she finally is willing to admit Trump is a civilly liable rapist.
And what is unique about this case is that the jury has now ruled. They have found him liable of sexual abuse. Do you not trust the jury and their findings, Ambassador?
I absolutely trust the jury, and I think that they made their decision based on the evidence. I just don't think that should take him off the ballot. I think the American people will take him off the ballot. I think that's the best way to go forward, is not let him play the victim, let him play the loser. That's what we want him to do at the end of the day.
just to be clear, do you think it's disqualifying, Ambassador?
I don't think he should be taken off the ballot. I think the American people will decide if he's disqualifying or not. We don't do that, Kristen, in America. Anybody that wants to run can run. And I think that's really important. We have seen a lot of people try and infringe on our freedoms and our democracy. We can never let that happen. I don't want a political party deciding who's right and wrong. I don't want, any judges to decide who deserves to be on the ballot and who doesn't. I want the American people to decide it. That's what the heartbeat of America is, our democracy. Let's let the American people decide who they want to lead this country.
Okay, so the notable part of that was her saying she does trust the jury who decided Trump's a civilly liable rapist and thinks they made that determination based on the evidence, not political bias or because they're part of the deep state, but because the evidence justified that determination. And in the party of family values, you would think they would care more about that, but they don't. They're almost certainly going to nominate a civilly liable rapist, which is pretty disgusting, and I still can't get my head around it. And by the way, since she went on and on about Trump being disqualified from the ballot, yeah, we'd all rather see him lose wonderfully to Joe Biden and be relegated to the dustbin of history that way. That would be more satisfying, but the Constitution can't be selectively applied. That's not how it works, or not how it should work. If he violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, then he has to be taken off the ballot, and it seems like he did. Just like if you try to run and you aren't 35 years old running for president, just a matter of upholding the Constitution. Then back to the previous speech, she sort of flipped the script on Trump and is trying to portray him as the pro-establishment candidate.
We need somebody who can do 8 years solid, no distractions. And I saw recently President Trump was surrounded by all these political endorsements, all these congressional members endorsing him. He was surrounded by the political establishment. The same political establishment who wasted our money. The same political establishment who didn't secure our borders. The same political establishment who allowed fentanyl to flow through. The same political establishment who's given us absolutely nothing for the last several years. And why does that same political establishment want me to get out of the race? Because I said we needed to have term limits in Washington, D.C. Because I said that if they didn't get us a budget on time, they don't get paid.
So that's an interesting strategy. Trump's obviously constantly calling her the establishment candidate, so she's trying to flip it on him since his supporters don't like pro-establishment candidates and say, no, he is. Okay. Then here's one more moment from this same speech.
And then he did it again. Then he came out and he pushed the RNC and his people at the RNC to say that he should be the nominee and that they should push me out. And we said only 2 states have voted. There are 48 more that have to vote. No matter what Donald Trump thinks, he can't bully his way to the White House. It's not going to work. And after he did that, we raised another $1.4 million. So Donald, keep them coming because it's great.
Okay, so we all know that Trump is one of the most sensitive snowflakes in American history. So my speculation is that this is really going to get under his skin, these sorts of comments from Nikki Haley, and he'll continue to lash out at her a ton. And that's really good for dividing the party and hurting them in the general. We just need a tiny percentage of Republicans to be turned off by Trump's anti-Haley behavior. And again, to either not be super motivated to turn out for him in the general or go out and vote for Biden. And that could doom Trump. And if Trump were smart, he would stop with the pettiness because, as she's pointing out, it seems to only help her fundraising and motivate people, at least who already support her, to support her more. And instead, he could act like he's the presumptive nominee, as he sort of is, just take up that posture, the best strategy for Trump could be to just pretend like Haley doesn't exist and start running against Biden exclusively. So people start perceiving him as the guy we just got to rally behind, right? That would be the smart strategy. But he can't do that because he is more easily triggered than anyone in the entire world and will be sending out messages, no doubt, all throughout the night about bird brain, as he calls her, Nikki Haley. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, and if you want to go a step further, you can do so by becoming a member at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, where you get access to the daily bonus show. Plus, make sure if you're listening to the podcast version of the show to rate and review.